Caitlin Clark is getting a taste of the NBA spotlight from the studio. The Indiana Fever star will join NBC's pregame coverage for the debut of Sunday night basketball when the Lakers play the Knicks at Madison Square Garden this weekend. You can catch the two-time WNBA All-Star and that game this Sunday here on KSL.
And be sure to stick with us. The KSL Sports team takes a deep dive into the Utah Jazz after this and ahead of tonight's game. You can catch the Utah Jazz tipping off against the Clippers right here on KSL at 8 p.m. And after that, get caught up with the news of the evening. KSL News will begin tonight at 11 o'clock.
So we'll see you a little bit later. We hope to see you still, though.
Have a good night.
You're watching KSL Sports Live. You're watching KSL. You're watching KSL Sports Live.
Picked up by Stockton, he shoots the top.
Oh, isn't it great to hear Round Ball rock again right here on KSL and NBC? This is a special edition of KSL Sports Live. Tonight, for the first time in 24 years, KSL and NBC is broadcasting a Utah Jazz game. The Jazz hosting Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, and the LA Clippers. For the next hour, we'll not only get you ready for that game, but you'll hear from head coach Will Hardy. Our Jazz insider Ben Anderson will stop by, and we'll also take a deep dive into the 2026 NBA draft with draft expert Kristen Peak of NBA.com. Utah Jazz entered tonight's matchup against the Clippers with a 15-31 record, sixth worst in the NBA, and host a Clippers team that has been on fire since mid-December. They've won 15 of their last 18 games, now making a playoff push. The Jazz beat the Clippers in the season opener in LA, 129-108, a game in which the Jazz saw a lead of as much as 37 shots on goal. The last meeting was here in Salt Lake City. The Clippers won that game 118-101, and Kawhi Leonard got revenge, scoring 45 points against the Jazz. We hope to Markkanen expected to see Keontae George tonight, but the Jazz released their injury report, and he's out tonight. He will rest against the Clippers. The development of Keontae George has been the top story for the Jazz this season. After 2 up-and-down seasons from the number 16 overall pick in the 2023 NBA draft, Keontae has taken a major jump in year 3 and emerged as a star. His scoring average has gone up from 16.8 points per game last season to 24.2 this year. That ranks 18th in the NBA. His assist numbers are up as well, and his field goal percentage and his three-point shooting percentage. And he's also now a 90% free throw shooter. Improvement in every statistical category. A jump that has him getting consideration. The NBA's most improved player and consideration for selection in the NBA All-Star Game. He recently shared one of the things he's worked on that has helped his game this year.
If I want to be the player that I want to be, I'm going to be seeing some of the best swing defenders in the NBA. So, kind of shooting it flat or how I used to shoot it last year really wasn't cutting it. And Will tells me, like, when I shoot it with arc, it gives it a chance to go in. Some of the best shooters in this league kind of have a lot of arc on their shot. So that was just the main thing, catching the ball closer to my body and then, keeping my elbow tucked and then shooting it, I like to say, to the sky.
We'll miss seeing Key tonight. All right, Lauri Markkanen hasn't played since he scored 28 points in a road win against the Cavaliers on January 12th, but he will be in the lineup tonight. He's been out with an illness that caused him to lose 10 pounds. Lauri has played at an all-star level again this year. He's averaging 27.9 points per win. That is 9th in the NBA, ahead of Steph Curry. His shooting percentages, rebounds, and assists all up from last season. Will he make the all-star team? He should, but he's also missed 13 of the Jazz 46 games this year. The reserves for the all-star game are chosen by the head coaches in each conference. The reserves will be announced on Sunday, February 1st, live on Peacock. Lauri believes he deserves a spot.
I think I've played at that level. NBA is really talented. There's a lot of high-level players, and so obviously that's an individual goal of mine, and I hope to make it.
You hear him every weekday on Jake and Ben on KSL Sports Zone. You'll also read all of his great content on the Utah Jazz on KSLSports.com. Nobody covers the Jazz better in this market than Ben Anderson. Ben, we couldn't do this show without you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Yeah, no, I thought this was cool. I was excited about the NBA on NBC pairing, and I was like, let me come in.
You're nostalgic, right?
Yeah, big time.
Isn't it cool to have Round Ball Rock back, to have the NBA on NBC? And, of course, we benefit here on KSL. Do you have memories of watching games on NBC back in the day?
Oh, Steve Snapper Jones and Bill Walton. Yeah,
exactly.
That's the voices of my childhood. Now, we've gotten some cool intros with some of these in the past. Of the Knicks are playing the Celtics. Like Jazz Clippers isn't a legendary historic series.
No.
But it's better than nothing.
Right, exactly. Hopefully we get more Jazz games in the future. This year we get one, and we're going to enjoy that while we have it. But this team is a lot more fun to watch. There's a lot more to be excited about with this team. You're covering them on the daily. What are you seeing with this team this year that's so much different than last year?
This is a team that's fighting breaking out. It's kind of funny because, again, the draft pick matters, and we'll talk about the draft pick, I'm sure. But this is a team that is right about to become a star. If it's a rock band, it's like they're about to go on tour and take over the world. Like, I do think it's close with what we've seen from Keontae George. It's just, it's so revolves around his leap this year. And it's been very real. He's 24 points a game and 6 assists and almost 4 rebounds. And he's just playing out of his mind. And it was fun for the first month. You thought, okay, this is a good player. And then the second month, you're like, oh, this is kind of sticking. And now it's like, he only had 22 points last night? Like, what's wrong? Like, he's just totally made that leap. So that's been what's most impressive for the Jazz this year. And then when you team with Lauri Markkanen when he's back on the floor, it just feels like the only thing that's stopping them is knowing that they've got to hold on to this draft pick. Because once they put their pedal to the metal, they're going to go, and they're going to be a good team pretty soon.
How did Keontae do it?
He took a major step forward from a maturity standpoint in between his second and his third year. He's talked a lot about going and talking to the team counselors and talking to people. And he said, it's not even about any one specific problem here or there. It's not just something on the court or off the court. There's not this like specific issue. It's just about the approach. And I know he had a big conversation with Will Hardy in the offseason, and they were blunt. They just said, look, man, if you don't figure this out, you won't be in the NBA. But if you figure it out, you can sign a 9-figure contract. And he's put himself in the 9-figure contract conversation. I mean, he's going to be talking about $100+ million the next time he signs a contract. So He's done a lot to grow up, and now that maturity is showing on the floor. And it's incredible. He's the type of leader the Jazz have been waiting for, and he's going to fill that role.
How has his emergence affected the rebuild? Sped up the rebuild?
Well, look, I've talked to people in the Jazz's front office, and they said we are waiting for the star to break out alongside Lauri Markkanen. We need one of these young guys to break out, and I think they thought maybe it'll be Taylor Hendricks, or maybe it would be Cody Williams, or now it's going to be Ace Bailey. It might be Ace Bailey, but it's also going to be Keontae George, and that's where it affects the rebuild. Is now it's not, oh, maybe it's one guy. Maybe you have two guys who are stepping up to fill it, and that's where, you know, the Oklahoma City Thunder had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and they hoped, oh, maybe Chet Holmgren does it. And then Jalen Williams is actually the better of the two players, and you're winning a title a few years later. So I'm not predicting a title for the Jazz, but that's how quickly you can exit these rebuilds, when you get two players coming together with your existing star.
The buzz all around the league is who's going to trade for Lauri Markkanen, and he keeps coming up in all these trade rumors. Yet you talk to people, the Jazz. I've talked to people over there. I don't get the sense at all that they want to move on from him. Do you believe that's the case? And what is the future of Lauri Markkanen in Utah if that is the case? You can never say never. And if the right offer comes along, you have to consider it. Right. But look, I was told in October, quote, we're not trading Lauri Markkanen after a national report came out that he was the most likely star to get moved this year. So it's not happening. I'm not waiting for it to happen. I don't have an article pre-written for it to happen. Like, I'm not doing any of the groundwork for that to come to fruition. I just don't think it is. I think Lauri's going to be here for the long haul. He seems just like the perfect fit here, and even on the timeline of some of these young players as well, right? Yeah, absolutely. You know, there was the talk of all these 21-year-olds, and he's 28. And now all of a sudden it looks like he's just getting into his prime. Right. And that gives him 4 years. Now you've got Ace Bailey or Keontae George hitting their, age 23, 24, 25 seasons, and they're ready to win. And Lauri's still in his prime on this contract. That's where the timeline weirdly condensed this season. And not in a bad way. I mean, they felt like the 28-year-old and the 23-year-old got closer together as opposed to further apart. Ace Bailey, you know, we all watched the lottery not go their way last summer, and there was devastation, and a lot of people were upset and disappointed. Looking back on it, did they get a guy, based on what you've seen so far, that can be exactly what they were looking for in that draft? Obviously, they didn't get Cooper Flag, but this could be the next best thing. Yeah, absolutely. This draft is amazing. First of all, Rising Stars Challenge announced yesterday night. It's crazy, all the talent out there. Knipple's great. Yeah, I mean, Con Knipple's awesome. VJ Edgecombe's awesome. Cedric Howard's great. Like, maybe the Jazz just could have gotten it right, whatever happened, and that's the nice thing. But no, you look at the size of Ace Bailey and the scoring of Ace Bailey, and what's even more impressive is that the Jazz haven't just said, go shoot a bunch, Ace Bailey, because they could have, and he could have been averaging 18 points a game already. I think he has that type of natural talent. They said, Ace, why don't you rebound? Why don't you pass? Why don't you play defense? And we'll see what we can do from there. And he's done all those things, and he's done them way better than anybody thought. So the basketball IQ, the instincts are all there. His feel is so good compared to what he showed at Rutgers that when the scoring comes, watch out, because it's going to be an avalanche of points and a kind of very well-rounded game that people didn't realize he had. Jusuf Nurkic was kind of an afterthought pickup. I think people thought maybe they were going to buy him out, or maybe they're going to move him at the trade deadline. He's been great, not just on the court, but I think there was a lot of negative talk about him in the league. We're not seeing that at all. He seems like he's been a great mentor, and he's a great locker room guy. What are you seeing from Jusuf Nurkic? 3 triple-doubles in a row. We never saw triple-doubles in Utah. Yeah, it's really funny. A year ago, the Phoenix Suns traded him with a first-round pick just to get off of his contract. Now, they didn't get anything back. Right. They had to attach a pick to get off of him. That's how he was thought of. And, yeah, he was kind of blamed for that collapse that they had in Phoenix with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. And clearly, he's not that guy. That's not his fault. So, no, he came to Utah. I think he had some real honest, and again, we're going to bring up Will Hardy a lot here because Will's a good coach. It's kind of about what they need from him. And he has praised Will Hardy as a young coach who gives him lots of opportunities, who encourages him. And he's put his arm around Jusuf Nurkic. I think Jusuf thought there was a real chance this was his last year in the NBA. We're going to have more with Ben Anderson coming up later in the show. We're going to talk about the trade deadline that's coming up soon, the All-Star game, will the Jazz get any All-Stars, and a lot of these younger players, their continued development as the Jazz move into the future.
So many good things happening within our organization and our team. Am I happy with where we're at? No. I won't be happy until we win the whole thing.
Proud! I had a chance to sit down with Will Hardy. He takes us through the process of the rebuild, the emergence of Keontae George as a star, and the upside of Ace Bailey. That and more coming up next. Hardy's now in his 4th year in the NBA as a head coach and recently earned his 100th win as an NBA head coach. He just turned 38 and has a contract with the Jazz through the 2031 season. No one is more invested in the rebuild and the future of this franchise than Coach Hardy. I had a chance to ask him about that rebuild and the progress being made in player development.
Watching this process of a rebuild, there's all these ups and downs and highs and lows. In 3.5 years, you've seen this process through. Where do you see it right now? Are you pleased with where you're at right now?
Hope he doesn't injure himself.
We're all watching this and we see the improvement with some of these young players and the light at the end of the tunnel. Do you see the same?
Yeah, I'm really hopeful for our future. I'm excited for our future. I think we have so many good things happening within our organization and on our team. Am I happy with where we're at? No, I won't be happy until we win the whole thing. But that's my responsibility, is to not get complacent, not feed into too much of the positivity around players getting better. Like, I think those are things that we recognize as a staff, and I want our players to recognize that their work is not going unnoticed. But we've got a lot of work still to do, and I think both things can happen at the same time. Like, you can be hopeful and you can be excited and you can still not be satisfied.
In a world and in a business that's not patient, how do you maintain that patient approach, which is the right approach?
I think you have to really just decide who you're going to listen to. I don't think that fans should be patient. I think fans all want to win, and fans want their team to be great. And I think, for me, I love that about our fan base, because they do it, that they express that in a way that makes sense. Our fans are not naive to the process that we're going through. They're not naive to the fact that it takes time for young players to turn into a winning group. But I like that our fans are hungry.
He's jumping.
Because they show up for us every night. Our building's packed every night. I feel it when I move around our city.
Things are just falling into place
People are excited about our future. And they like our guys, and they see where we're going. But I think in terms of maintaining the patience, you have to block out certain voices. I care about what the people in our building think. I care about what the players in our locker room think. And outside of that, I try to keep my head up and my shoulders back and try to represent this organization and our fan base to the best of my ability every single day. Somebody asked me the other day, like, what's my approach going through this? And I tell myself all the time, I have written on a piece of paper on my desk, stand in the front and don't flinch. I think that's my responsibility.
Did you see the emergence of Deontay George as a star coming? What did he do, and what have you observed him doing to take this kind of a leap?
Keontae was able to be honest with himself, and a lot has been made of
timeout on the floor.
Our
There's a moment. Keontae and his head coach Will Hardy.
But he deserves all the credit for where he is right now, because he was able to really look himself in the mirror and
he shot this one like he had been 6 out of 7.
What he needed to improve.
Nothing but net.
From an approach
Keontae with a big bucket. Oh yeah, you can celebrate that one.
To improve, in his body. He just put his head down and did the work. Like, there's no substitute for doing the work.
Yeah, well, we get to see this every night.
We all want quick fix. We all want results.
Rudy Gobert
right
coming
this
at you.
second.
Nice hands, Filipowski flips a
I think
pass.
Keontae's shift in his approach has given him
right over the hands of
the
Durham.
results, but those things are just a byproduct of his approach. And he's still working at it. Like, he still has a down day here and there, but they're fewer and further between than they used to be. And that's the sign of improvement.
One nice win, but
did I see
You come
Keontae
home
be
in
a
front of
star?
your own crowd.
I told Keontae from the very
That
first
man
day,
right
his
there is
talent
leading
so
you to
obvious.
victory.
He has a real presence about him on the court. You can see it with the way that his teammates
fires it off
respond to
the
him,
key,
where
drives
fans respond
baseline.
to him.
Oh, left-hander.
But I don't want to put a ceiling on how good he's going to be. I'm not that smart. Like, I can't just look at a player and say, oh, they're going to be X, Y, or Z. I think you try to envision pathways for them. And if you can get them on the right path,
129 at Delta Center.
then
How
you
about
don't
an
really know how
eruption?
far they're actually going to be able to go. But a big part of our responsibility is trying to find those pathways.
How has his emergence changed the trajectory of where you guys are going with this franchise, the speed at which you're going?
Yeah, I think it's been a really good indicator for us in terms of taking a step forward. In order for us to be successful, you have to have some internal development. You have to have some of your homegrown people turn into really good players. And
He missed 4 of the previous 7. Keontae just continues to win 10 out of 16 games, including tonight. He put pressure either at the end of the first
some of our
to give him that 21. He didn't stop there. With the 21
over the top of the rim, Cody with a
to really
rebound,
win at
turns
the
on some
highest level,
speed.
you've got to be 12 deep. And so you're not going to have 12 star players, but you have to have a bunch of people that can participate in winning and play in playoff games.
Jazz 11 turnovers have not helped
whether
in
it's
this first.
tactical differences, matchups, or just injuries on your own team. Like, you don't know when you're going to need everybody. And so Keontae gets a lot of public praise, and rightfully so, but he has some of his teammates too who are getting a lot better as well.
Ace Bailey's one of those teammates, and we're seeing the flashes.
What
have you learned about him? Getting to know him, both on and off the court, that gives you belief and promise that he's going to reach his potential?
Ace is a really fast learner. He wants to learn. He wants to be coached. He's honest almost to a fault. Like, he takes a lot of accountability when he's playing. Sometimes he's taking accountability for things that weren't his fault. But those are massive indicators for me of somebody who's going to be successful. He doesn't make excuses. He doesn't point fingers. There are certain circumstantial things, whether it could be in a game or over the course of 10 games, that aren't his fault, that have put him in some tough spots. And he never complains. I think on the court, the part I'm most excited about with Ace is that he's showing the ability to impact the game on both sides of the ball. To win at the highest level, your best players have to play on both sides.
We'll have more with Coach Hardy later in the show. Up next, a trip back in time to the last Utah Jazz game that aired on KSL and NBC, the last regular season. And of course, my conversation with Phil Hardy continues. Jazz and Clippers coming up at the top of the hour right here on KSL. This is a special edition of KSL Sports Live that continues after this. Most of you who grew up in the 90s associate the NBA on NBC. You recognize Round Ball Rock every time you hear it. Some of the greatest moments in Utah Jazz history were seen on KSL and NBC. The last regular season Utah Jazz game on KSL and NBC was February 2nd, 2002 against the Portland Trail Blazers. As you'd expect, Stockton and Malone had to go bring this one. Stockton at 17 points and 9 assists. The mailman delivered 24 points and 13 rebounds. The Jazz had a rookie named Andre Kirilenko. He slams in 2 of his 12 points. This was an intense game. Rasheed Wallace was ejected. The Jazz trailed 30 seconds left when John Stockton drives and scores to give the Jazz a late lead. They were able to keep that lead. Jaron Collins slammed home the dunk at the end of the game. That slammed the door on the Blazers, and the Jazz won the game and the season series with the Blazers 3-1.
They're a good team, and they're playing well, as we all know, and so that's a good victory for us, regardless of the circumstances.
We got the tiebreaker. You know, we're 3-1 against these guys or whatever, and it was a nice win for us because it could come down to one game.
I got to take another break. When we come back, more with Will Hardy, and Ben Anderson is back too. Will the Jazz be busy at the NBA trade deadline? He shares his thoughts on that and much more. The Jazz and the Clippers coming up on KSL at the top of the hour. More KSL Sports Live right after this.
You're watching KSL Sports Live.
Picked up by Stock, and he shoots the shot. Bingo!
Welcome back. Jazz and Clippers coming up at the top of the hour right here on KSL and NBC. We now continue my conversation with head coach Will Hardy. We get into the development of Bryce Sensabaugh and Cody Williams and the all-star level play of Lauri Markkanen.
How great has Lauri been in every way for you guys right now?
It would be hard for me to express how grateful I am for Lauri. The human being that he is, the player he is, the way he carries himself, the way he prepares, the way he competes. For a first-time head coach coming here to be able to partner with somebody like Lauri, for our relationship to grow, for us to grow together on the court, off the court, he's everything that we want to stand for as an organization. Like, he is what the Utah Jazz are about. He's a top-level human being. He's an amazing player. He carries himself with a ton of humility. He's a part of our community. It's hard to put into words how grateful I am and we are for Lauri.
Bryce Sensabaugh went on a tear off the bench that the NBA's never seen.
Mm-hmm.
What did you learn about him with those performances and what he's been doing?
Yeah, Bryce has an innate ability to score. I wish I could say that we were teaching him all those things. We've tried to help refine a few areas and a few different reads that he's making on the court, but Bryce can really get it going. And so I think we have to continue to recognize the moments when we need to just kind of let him go, while also managing the nights when we need to involve him, but within the construct of the team. You know, when somebody gets hot like Bryce did, there's this temptation to just double down. And the next game is like, oh, we're going to let it ride again. And I don't think that's productive. Like, each game is its own thing. And it's great that Bryce has been in a good rhythm, but every game needs to start with the approach of playing within the construct of the team. And then if you really get it going again, well, then we can sort of take the guardrails off and let you go.
There's always been this belief that a rook or young players need a great vet to show them the ropes. But if you have a bad vet, it's not necessarily the case, right? But it looks like you found the right vets here. What is it about some of these older guys that are really having a positive impact on these younger players?
I think the best thing that Kevin and Nurk and Kyle, George coming in, like those four coming in, I just think they're able to provide so much perspective to our young players and about what it's like other places, about the opportunity that they have, about different things that they've experienced in the early parts of their career, things they are happy they did, things they regret doing. It's perspective that I can't give them. You need learning to come in a variety of ways, and I think that being an NBA player is really hard. And all four of those guys have what our young players want, which is longevity in the NBA. So I think those guys have provided a ton of perspective. I also think they've modeled a lot of really good behavior in terms of how they take care of themselves.
Cody Williams, it feels to me like he's in this tough spot because of who his brother's become and what he is and what the expectations were of a first-round pick. Everybody thinks he's going to be his brother or whatever whatever those expectations are placed upon him. How have you been able to help him manage that so he takes that slow approach and doesn't get bogged down in what people think he should be instead of who he is?
Yeah, I try not to talk about it with him. You know, his brother's a great player, and I respect him a lot, but I don't talk about him with Cody ever. because Cody is running his own race, and Cody's got a lot to offer, and he's a part of our group, and we respect his brother from afar, but Cody's ours, and Cody's who I care about. You know, Austin and I say to each other all the time, comparison's the thief of joy, and I really believe that. I don't want Cody to start thinking about where he is relative to his brother. It's unproductive, because his circumstance is also different. So I think Cody has done a really, really good job in terms of the way that he's competing with himself every day. I can't imagine, you know, some of those pressures that just come with the fact that your brother's a really good player. I'm sure people on Twitter want to remind him of that, but to me, all of those comparisons are unproductive because Cody still has an opportunity to have a great career ahead of him.
Your veterans have been wise to let these young players know how good they have it here. And one of the great things they have here is patience. You know, these guys have had time to develop. There's not this, you know, there's pressure in other places, but not quite here. How connected are you with the front office in being able to manage that part of it? Everybody here understands that there's a long game here. How is that benefiting those younger players?
I'm really lucky to work with and for who I do. Pro sports in general, the NBA, it's a hard landscape. And perspective and having a group that's aligned is something that we all talk about, but you don't see it as much as you would think. You know, myself, Austin, Justin, Ryan, Danny, like, we're as connected as I could ever imagine. We don't really have to have a ton of scheduled meetings because we all talk all day, every day. It's this running conversation where nothing gets lost in translation. The relationships, the ability to communicate very openly and honestly between myself, Austin, Justin, Danny, it's what allows us to navigate hard moments. It's what allows us to really plan for the future. And I think it does benefit our young players because they don't feel like there's a divide in the organization. Our players know how connected we are. Our players know that the plans that we are putting together for them in terms of their development, the future of our team, they're being made together. With myself, Austin, Justin, Danny, like, it's not oh, they're handling that part of the plan and I'm handling this part of the plan. It's not like that at all. So I think if you follow our team, if you follow our organization, I think you can feel it. I think the way that we all interact with each other, I think the way that we all communicate with each other is pretty evident.
Back for more with Ben Anderson, KSLSports.com and the KSL Sports Zone. Ben, we talked a lot about the progress this team has made this season. It's obviously a great leap, and you can now see the light at the end of the tunnel. Now moving forward, there's the trade deadline that's coming up, and I think that's on a lot of people's minds because you mentioned earlier trying to keep that pick. You don't want to convey that pick to Oklahoma City. Making a couple trades could help them potentially with that, managing the roster. Do you see the Jazz active at the trade deadline, and what would be their motivation?
I do think the motivation will be to get a better asset going forward. I don't know if they're actually that worried about the pace they're at to lose games. As of where we're speaking now, they're in this weird little window for the 6th worst record in the NBA, where the Charlotte Hornets just in front of them are a couple of games in front of them, and the teams behind them, whether that's the Sacramento Kings or the New Orleans Pelicans, who are suddenly starting to creep up, Brooklyn Nets, they're far enough behind that, like, I don't know if the Jazz are going to fall back or make up any space. They might just cement themselves into that 6th spot, which if you're holding on to the pick, you've got a 96% chance of doing that. Not to get lost into the minutia, but they might not need to be aggressive, where in the past they traded a Mike Conley or a Kelly Olynyk to take a step backwards. They might be able to just kind of massage the system, play the players when they need to, not play them enough, where they don't have to say, oh, we got to get less talented. And they shouldn't. They shouldn't be worried about getting less talented if the goal is next season to make a push for the playoffs. They shouldn't be thinking about that, certainly not with any of their really core pieces. Now, the fringe guys, the Yusuf Nurkic's of the world, Kevin Love, Kyle Anderson, some of those names get a little bit more interesting if they could help a contender. But I don't know if the Jazz are kicking down anyone's door to move anybody off this roster.
And the reason why this is such a question is because that draft looks so good. You've looked at it. We get to watch A.J. Debonsa just down the road from where we're sitting right now. It looks like a great draft class. It's obviously worth it to be in this lottery. There's some players in this lottery that could change a franchise.
Yeah, you look at what a huge addition Ace Bailey is going to be for this Jazz roster. Now add a second one. You know, we were talking earlier about Keontae George and Ace Bailey. Oh my gosh, you're rich with these young players. Now imagine if you have a third and has a chance to be better than either of those guys. Yes, it is that type of class. So, you know, you don't want to get lost in that. It can be a trap, and if you bet everything on your young players, that can be a problem. But if you get one of those guys and you hold on to this pick this year, it can really pay off. It can really advance your program. So I do think that is the value. I do think that's the most likely opportunity and pathway for the Jazz to get better this summer is with that draft pick. So I think they recognize that, and they'll focus on making sure they hold on to it. And they're 3-11 in their last 14 games. Like they're not winning at a high pace right now.
Yeah, they should be fine there. Look, the whole thing that they're trying to do is find stars, and it looks like they've found two of them, Lauri Markkanen and Keontae George for sure. We'll see with Ace Bailey, as you mentioned, and whoever comes in this draft. But the All-Star Game's coming up, by the way, right here on KSL and NBC. Looking forward to that as well during the Olympics. Excited to have that back on KSL. But looking ahead, what chances do Lauri or Keontae have to get selected this year? Is Lauri missing some games hurting his cause recently?
Certainly not helping him.
Yeah.
And I think, and with the Jazz losing as many games as they have, I don't think that's helping him either. Had he made this crazy push over the last 2 or 3 weeks since they named the starters, I think he really could have kept his name in the conversation. I don't think that's going to be the case anymore. There are just so few spots in the West because the coaches go and choose the next 7 players, and the 5 starters are great. But, you know, there are fringe players like Alperen Şengün, who plays for the Houston Rockets, who's like a no-question all-star most years, and he's right on the perimeter. He's right on the edge of whether he's going to make it or not. And the same could be said for Deni Avdija. So Lauri's best chance to make it might be as an injury replacement. If somebody who's a starter or one of these reserves ends up not being able to play, maybe Lauri gets picked as the 13th or the 14th guy. Otherwise, I don't think it's going to happen. And Keontae, I just think he's too young. I think there are a lot of really good guards in the NBA, and we see players like Keontae come up. Usually takes a year or 2 more of this before he makes it. But I do see an All-Star game in his future, just not this season.
We're talking about the 24 best players on the planet.
Yeah, right.
It's hard to make an All-Star team.
And remember, JJ, ESPN released their top 25 players under 25 earlier this year. Keontae wasn't on it. Now, that's comical. Because we're talking about, is he a top 25 player in the NBA? And rightfully so.
Lastly, I want to ask you about the young players in this roster. We're watching their development. You're seeing what Bryce Sensabaugh is doing off the bench. Isaiah Collier's getting double-doubles. Cody Williams is starting to turn a corner. And, of course, you know, you see a lot of other guys making their contributions that we're watching. What are you seeing from these younger guys? Are they making that move forward, or could the Jazz be looking at saying, maybe this isn't the right fit, we need to move off some of these guys?
I do think the Jazz put some players out there to sink or swim, and Cody might have been the most obvious choice. He had such a difficult rookie season that they may have said, we're going to give him one more chance, and if he doesn't do anything, maybe you got to start thinking of moving off of him because, you know, when you're drafted in the top 10, you have a big salary. I know we look at these rookie deals. Ace Bailey is set up to be the Jazz's 2nd highest paid player next year. Like, you make a lot of money when you're a top 10 pick, and Cody's going to be in that conversation as well. So you needed to see if he could play. And man, has he answered the call, because he's out there now and he's shooting in the corners since the turn of the new year, over 40% from the 3-point line. He's really finishing at the rim really well, a lot of highlight reel dunks, and he might be the Jazz's most instinctive defensive player on the perimeter. So there's a lot of growth left. You know, he's by no means an established NBA player, but compared to where he was to start the year and all of last season, it's night and day. And good for Cody. He's a really nice kid. And probably the type of player the Jazz would like to have in their program from a personality standpoint.
It's Ben Anderson, KSLSports.com, the KSL Sports Zone. You hear him there with Jake each and every weekday. Nobody covers the Jazz better. Ben, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, JJ.
We're just over 15 minutes away from tip-off between the Jazz and Clippers. The Jazz beat the Clippers in the season opener in L.A. 129-108, a game which saw the Jazz lead by 37 points. The last meeting was here in Salt Lake City. The Clippers won that game 118-101. Kawhi Leonard scored 45 points against the Jazz. Kawhi Leonard, we just got word, is playing tonight, so you'll see him play. Lauri Markkanen back as well for the Jazz. No Keontae George tonight. All right, the improvement for the Utah Jazz is very obvious. They are much more competitive, and they're much more entertaining. We have proof of that right here. We had to make some very tough choices and left some great plays out, but here are the top 5 Utah Jazz plays of the first half of the season.
Keontae. Step back. Lets the traffic fly by. Oh! The free throw with a chance to win.
Keontae George made a miracle.
He bites on the
play
pop,
against
on
the
the step
Orlando Magic.
back.
And if it weren't for Desmond Bain, this would have been a miracle game winner. And not only
Keontae George comes up clutch on the defensive end.
Keontae shot to me the top
now,
here's Collier, Marketing, hands it off. Keontae three. Got it! Oh, yeah!
Now that is a game winner. A wild game at the Delta Center against the Chicago Bulls that took 2 overtimes to decide a winner. Falling
And he
backwards,
shot this one like he had been 6 out of 7.
for the victory.
Nothing but Utah fighting Memphis 102-95. Collier. Oh, behind that pass. Come on. What a play. Put that one on the highlight reel.
we're going to be seeing that.
Collier's passing skill is elite. You don't see execution like this often. To make it even
Of
better,
Isaiah
Ace Bailey with the cherry on top over 2 Grizzlies defenders. Hey, speaking of Ace.
Rebound Nurkic off the miss. Banchero try to crash the boards for the rebound. Ace Bailey. Oh! Takes off, and this young rookie punishes the rim. He has played of late.
The fact that Ace Bailey did not get selected to the Rising Stars at All-Star Weekend is a Travis mockery. Come on, NBA. You don't want to see plays like this.
From right
half dozen different ace
below
dunks in this 2-spot, but the distance separates this thing.
the circle. And numbers right now.
3 on 2. Clayton. Oh, my. He climbed up the ladder. He punished the rim. And loving it.
Now you know. Walt Clayton with not only the top play of the first half of the season for the Jazz, that's a contender for dunk of the year in the NBA so far. Incredible elevation over a star player. It doesn't get better than that. Kristen Peak joins us next with a breakdown of the upcoming NBA draft. We'll be right back. Jazz are looking for one more difference maker in the upcoming NBA draft. We're keeping a close eye on that, and nobody covers it better than Kristen Peak of NBA.com and NBA TV. It's great to have you in town.
I'm happy to be here.
And you had a great show last night down in Provo.
A wonderful show. Listen, I will say this about the BYU fan base. They do not disappoint. Down 13 with 2 minutes, and you would have thought it was a tie ball game. And then they came back. It was rocking. I love going to games there.
Okay, so this draft class looks pretty good. The 2025 draft class has been outstanding. I think it's been even maybe exceeded the expectations that many had for the depth of it. How good is the 2026 class?
The 2026 draft class is my favorite draft class in the last 10 years, specifically when you look at the one-and-done talent and what is projected at the top. So if you are a team like the Jazz and you're taking a swing and you miss on the number one, that doesn't matter, because I think the first top tier is the first top prospects of the draft, and they're all freshmen, and they're all super talented, and they are all producing at a very high rate their freshman year.
It's pretty impressive. And of course, we're getting an up-close look with AJ DeBonsa. I think everybody here is dreaming of a Jazz DeBonsa marriage coming up in the draft. His coach thinks he's the best prospect. He thinks he's the number one. Is he, in your mind, and in the mind of NBA scouts?
He is, but there's still a lot of time. You know, the draft is until June, and when you look at the number one conversation between him and Darren Peterson, right now I think AJ DeBonsa has the edge because of what he does in his mid-range game, how he can defend the perimeter, and also the backcourt so well. He's one of the best defenders, and he's 6'9". He's a 6'9" shooting guard. But then you look at Darren Peterson, and he's been dealing with a lot of injuries, hamstring, and now he's out with an ankle. I do think he'll be back for Saturday's game. But what he does with his shot creation and shot selection, it just projects so much better in the NBA spacing. And so these are the conversations that front offices are going to have.
You're going to be there for that showcase in Lawrence on Saturday. What are you expecting between those two?
Let me tell you, the last time I saw the two of them match up, in high school they squared off 3 times. The last time they combined for 107 total points between the two of them. Darren Peterson had 58, AJ DeBonsa had 49. And so when you look at like the matchup, and Darren hasn't played the last 2 games, you best believe he's going to make every effort to play in this game on Saturday, because the two of them, they know what's at stake. They know they're battling for that number one pick. And by the way, that place is going to be filled to the rafters with NBA scouts and executives.
That's going to be an awesome one. Of course, Cam Boozer.
Oh my gosh.
Is every reason to be interested in coming here. His dad works for the team. Of course, Carlos Boozer, Jazz legend. What is it about him that makes him such an elite talent?
It's crazy to me that in a draft, we are speaking about Cameron Boozer as the number 3 pick, where this is the most winningest player in all of high school basketball.
Wow.
He won 4 straight Florida State championships. He won a national title at Chipotle Nationals last year for Columbus. And he won 3 Peach Jam championships for the EYBL. Nobody has ever done that. Oh, by the way, also 3 gold medals, and he was the MVP at the U17. So he is a winner, he's a connector, and he just does everything so well.
Such a great player, and it keeps going. Caleb Wilson of North Carolina, this is another great start. Like you say, the depth in this draft is crazy.
Caleb Wilson was not in the top 4 conversation before the season started. Everyone was looking at Michael Brown Jr. at Louisville and Nate Ament, who's at Tennessee. And what Caleb Wilson has done, my favorite thing about Caleb this year is he's kept receipts. He went, and when they played against Kansas, he said, look, I was on the same team with Darren Peterson for the McDonald's All-American game. I didn't get a lot of ball touches. I'm here to prove something. When they played Notre Dame in the handshake line, he said to the head coach, thanks for not putting me on the U18 USA team. It gave me the motivation to be where I am now. So he's keeping receipts, and he is playing at a high level.
Kingston Fleming's another Big 12 player we watch. It keeps going. We saw what he did last week. I mean, it's just an offensive explosion. What is it about his game that people like?
It's crazy to me that he was not a McDonald's All-American, and we're talking about him as a potential top 5 pick. When you go and you play for someone like Kelvin Sampson, you have to be tough, and he demands the best out of you, and that's exactly what we're getting from Kingston. When he was at Players Era, I guarantee you there was a general manager at that tournament watching, and they're going to draft him based off that tournament alone. But he has just continued just to get better and better as the season progresses.
Great list of players, great highlights.
And they're all
seeing
freshmen.
there. Right, they're all freshmen. It's unbelievable. Some great talent to choose from, and now you see why the Jazz are trying to build in this draft, and there's going to be a great opportunity here to get another potential star player. We'll see where they land.
June is going to be fantastic.
Can't wait for it. Kristen, nobody's better. Kristen Peak, thank you so much. Appreciate it. You can see her work on NBA TV, NBA.com, and if you're not following her on X, You do all these interviews with all these draft prospects. You're doing great work. You're traveling all over the country. You're phenomenal. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for
So
having
if you're
me.
looking for draft content, Kristen Peek's got you covered.
Ball fake, running out of time. Morris, one dribble, blocked, and that'll do it. That's game.
So many great moments between the Jazz and Clippers, especially recently in the playoffs. Rudy Gobert's game-winning block in round 2 of the 2021 playoffs. One of the best postseason moments between the two teams. Utah Jazz and LA Clippers have a long history, of course, that goes back to the days when Bill Walton was a Clipper and the team was in San Diego. John Stockton and Karl Malone had some memorable performances against them back in the day. I'm going to jump in the time machine here and check them out. 2 of Karl Malone's 4 triple-doubles came against the Clippers. The first one in 1996 and the second in the regular season finale of the 1998-99 season. 29 points, 12 rebounds, and 10 assists. John Stockton owned the Clippers in the 1988 season. Stockton had 4 20-plus assist games against the Clippers that season. 21 in this game. All right, it's almost time. Tip-off coming up between the Jazz and Clippers right here on KSL. Enjoy the game, everyone. Watch the KSL 5 News after the game.